Hello there, welcome to my channel, New Beginnings, my everyday life in rural Cyprus. I must apologise when you always see me looking down because I'm hacking. I have to get things ready to go. So let's first of all look who's in the chat. We have Stephen Tina Jewel, and we have Nunya Texas on the back 20 already in the chat. Thank you for being there, much appreciated. So let's say hello to Jake, Steve and Tina. So yes, indeed, welcome to my channel, and you are so appreciated. I say that from the bottom of my heart. Really makes a difference when you're doing live rather than just babbling away to yourself. So today, mostly we chat about anything, but I've themed it on garden chat and tips for September gardening. It's 1st of September here. Depends what day you're on where you are. Most of you are just waking up to the 1st of September, and I'm coming into the evening of the 1st of September. So that's the difference here. Do let me know what you're growing. Let me know if you can't grow or you don't have a garden. So if you're unable to grow because you live in an apartment or something like that, and you don't have a balcony, then don't forget, you can always ask somebody, can you use a bit of their garden, and you share what you've grown. There's always a way if you want to do gardening. Steve says holiday in Canada. Oh, happy holiday to you. Happy holiday. Happy holiday. Yeah, so tell me what you are growing, and what I always like to know is what you're trying for the first time. Always try something new, and as I say, don't think the first time you grow it, it won't grow. I'm not bothering with that again. Just slightly position it somewhere else in your garden can make a huge difference. And just because the seed packet says sow something at a certain time doesn't mean that's necessarily right for your country. So it's very hard for me to watch videos and people tell you when to plant things and how to plant them. We are semi-tropical, so I tend to watch the tropical videos. That's all I can really follow for correct planting and that kind of thing. Jake says, wife and kids over there should be down in Med this week. What, in Cyprus? In Cyprus? Ooh. Ooh. Jake says, my garden is done. Need to plough it under. So I'll show you what I've done for this year. I've done it before, but I've done a new one for this year. First of all, I've shared with you a video on where I tell you companion planting, what grows best with what and the reasons why. I have shared a video on that. And then when I look at what things I want to grow, I then just go back and check with that, is there something else I can plant with it to make it benefit? So that's something to always take in mind when you've got a small garden as well, companion planting. There's many things that cannot be planted with or near other things. So I always keep my little list of that and just check that. Jake saying, no, they're in France. Yeah, well, nowhere in France. We're not in Europe. We're not in Europe. We're actually quite near. Most people know Israel, so that's one of the closest countries to us. So we're way away from Europe. We're way away from Greece. A lot of people think we're a Greek island. We're not a Greek island. Steve says Tina does the gardening and growing. Dawn does it here. When Sammy came from small urban gardens, no, small urban green. Oh, do apologise. Small Urban Greens homestead. When Sammy came from there, she said she was amazed how much bigger my garden, my land is than what she saw on the video. She said, oh, it's really big. And I've had a few video know, I've had a few viewers come to visit me that have watched my channel and contacted me and said, can they come and have a look round or whatever, but not YouTubers. Sammy's the first YouTuber I've had filming it. And they've all said the same. They said, well, you really don't get any idea how big your land is by your videos at all. They're all shocked by it. And Sammy said, she said, how long does it take you and Mike to say weed or do things in the garden? I went, Mike doesn't do the gardening. She went, you do it all by yourself. He mows the grass, and we use the grass in the hugelkulturs beds. So he does that, and obviously he does maintenance and that kind of thing. But that's me. It's all me. Jake says, I think she'll be in Marseille. I just called it over there. They're closer to you than me. Ah, right. I get you. Yeah, I don't think of that because we're so far away from Europe. I don't really think of that. But yes, for you guys, of course. That's why so many of my American YouTuber friends all say, you really want to come. Oh, but it's such a journey. I don't think a lot of that because I always went from England long haul, very long haul holidays. So, yeah, it's the same for you in reverse. Yes, of course it is. I do forget. Okay, so I've got the companion planting, but then I write I've redone it, what to sow each month. Now, because I've redone it, I've just got a compilation of different videos and different books that say you can sow this, it's say in September. I've done the whole year. And as I say, a lot of them are not wrong, but wrong for my country. And then what I'm doing is if they come up, I'm highlighting them. If they don't come up, then it's not right for me because we're still in extreme heat. So some of you are going into fall, or some of you are talking about winter. Tony Rad, who watches me, she's in North Michigan, and she says it's absolutely freezing there at the moment. So some of you are going through that sort of weather. So we are still, I pick my olives mid to late November normally, and I get sunburnt doing it. You can have a shower, like a quick shower, then you might not very likely, but it is possible. So let me show you. So for example, I started July and August, and you can see I highlighted one out the whole list here. That was beans. They've got to be really sheltered, and a lot of them did die after they came up. And then August, the only thing out the list of August was radish. So now I've got September, and it's recommended you can plant beetroot, white Lisbon onion, pea, more radish, I will be doing that, corn salad, chicory, the green leaf version, coriander, some types of endive. Be aware there's a lot of things that say lettuce. You can grow different types of lettuce, different seasons. So look at your variety. Parsley, rocket, silene or selene, and spinach. Now what I do is get a little, it's like a plastic carry thing with a handle, like a plastic tub with a handle. I get all of those out that it says out my seed box. I put them all in there, and they all stay in there until I've planted them out. So I haven't got to keep looking and whatever else. So that's how I organise what I'm going to try this year at what season. I haven't really ever done winter planting. I haven't really done that. I just normally plant, I say spring, but I do it December. I start my spring seeds. Gives you an idea. So I plant my spring seeds in December, and I just keep planting those things again. And so I have different waves of those keep going. So never plant one thing and that's it. Like tomatoes, I keep going until they don't grow so well or struggle to come. And so that means for me, I still have tomatoes, whereas it's not very heard of in this sort of temperate to still have tomatoes. So spread your things out. Keep planting a few more of the same thing until make your own charts and decide when you're not going to plant them anymore. Then I got out my new books. I say new, these are all from charity shops that I've been showing you that I've got. And are they all? Yes, these are all Patricia Jordan, who is well known, and she writes about gardening in Cyprus. So I thought I'd look up September, what she's saying, because this should now be correct. And this one is the Cyprus Garden. And she says, in September, it's still too warm for any serious gardening. Well, let me tell you, we watch people in Portugal and they're going out doing DIY outside and digging, and you just couldn't even do it, not even first thing in the morning. It's too hot. She says Coptic winds are due again at the end of the month. Holy Cross Day on September the 14th, there's a big festival in Cyprus. And the reason she talks about that is there's a big festival goes on about passion flowers. So she talks a little bit about passion flowers that were first discovered in 1569 in Peru. There are now many different species and cultivators in collections around the world. And then different types she goes into there. And she's saying the connection with Christ's passion comes from its form. The outer ring has 10 tepals, which are between a sepal and a petal, represent the 10 apostles who were at Christ's crucifixion. Its 5 stamens represent his wounds, and its 3 stigmas, the nails. So there's that. She says passion flowers are supposed to bloom on this day. Their flowers are said to resemble the instruments of Christ's passion. She says the plant will grow enormously, up to 10 meters if not checked. It can be grown indoors, but as you wouldn't want it winding its way all over your living room, it's normally entwined around a wire hoop. If you want it outside, find a sunny spot for it. It's not too fussy about the kind of soil, but prefers loam to peat. If the soil is too rich, then you would just get loads of lush growth and not many flowers, which appear on the new growth. Bearing that in mind, pruning can be quite severe, ideally in the spring. Don't cut the stems back all at the same time, or you'll restrict the plant. The same treatment applies to those grown outside and inside, and instead of wire rings or stakes, you can let them scramble over trees and bushes where they will lure butterflies into your garden. So that's the flower here. We have this in our garden here. So there's that one. She's also saying watch out for scale insects this month. They manifest themselves as little white blobs of fluff on plants. Inside the white blobs are the tiny scale insects, and having emerged from their cocoons, they immediately start ravaging the plants. Their excreta forms a black sooty mess everywhere, and the only way to get rid of it is to burn the plants or dispose of them in some other way. Best to keep an eye out for white blobs and spray, or I use washing up liquid. So she says that doesn't shift them. It does if you spot them as soon as possible. The other way I stop them is I spray water on the leaves and the bottom of the leaves as well. So do that every day because they don't like damp. So if you spray, there's that. She also says, don't forget to check citrus trees for signs of iron or zinc deficiencies. Keep spraying your oranges and grapefruit. We don't do any spraying here. Remember, a shortage of iron shows itself in the leaves, turning very light green or even yellow. So that's what she says. Anything else she says for September? Keep an eye on weeding, fork over any compacted soil. Yeah, that's obviously something we get here with the extreme heat for so many months. You might want to repot your plants with fresh bedding plants after the heat of summer. If you grow vegetables, you should think about working on your plot again. The ground will probably have been resting since before the heat. Now is the time to dig in some compost to rejuvenate the soil and start to water it again. If you like to sow your own seeds, do so towards the end of this month. If you're lucky, you could have a harvest of lettuce very soon, and depending on where you live, a crop of tomatoes as well. Sow seeds in plastic modules so the whole seedling can be gently lifted out and popped into the ground. Now, I don't recommend that because they will need so much water if you're planting them in tiny areas. As you know, I use plastic takeaway cartons that have sealable lids, and that keeps the moisture in. You don't want any open types of pots this time of year. She says you can select from broccoli, Brussels sprouts. I don't grow that. I don't like those. Cabbage. That doesn't grow very well here. It's too hot. Or kohlrabi. Well, I've sown those and they're doing well. All of which will be ready in time for Christmas. Figs are still around even if you haven't any left in the garden. We're still picking them like crazy. When you bite into a fig, you're tasting a whole lot of history. Fig leaves covered Adam and Eve's innocence in the Garden of Eden. So that's one way. Cleopatra uncovered the asp that killed her at the bottom of a basket of her favourite figs. And it was December, according to fable, who first revealed the fig to mortals. The tree itself is held sacred in many countries of the Mediterranean. So there's figs, just skimming through. Fig trees, a bit more about fig trees. In September, select your autumn flowering flowers, repot planters, watch out for scale insects and check zinc and iron deficiencies. So that was what she recommended in that book. This one is another one of her books. And this one is called The Potted Garden. September. Oh, it's plant of the month, so we know that. It's passion flowers, we know that. And then it's all about the passion flowers. There's another picture there. So I've got some more passion flower pictures there. So we have those. Sometimes a plant will bear fruits which turn a very bright orange when ripe. They can be eaten but are not flavoursome. If you aren't going to eat them, remove them as they appear on the plant. You can sow the seeds to make new plants, but they strike easily from fresh cuttings. So that's all she's got in that one. And then this one is the cypress orchard that she did. I've also got her tree one. If I see any of hers, I buy them, but I've got to remember now which ones I've got. I don't know how many more there are, but I'm buying specifically cypress, although the tree one wasn't. September, keep checking your citrus trees for signs of iron or zinc deficiencies. You might even find medfly. So that's all she says in this one. So that's the condition leaves can go if they're not getting enough zinc or iron. So that's those. And then I've got these ones I've shared many times before that Mike's mum used to collect. It was weekly or weekly, I think it is. 52 parts. And each one covers a main item. So this one's pears, but it also has some other little snippets of other things. Plus there's a bit in the beginning that is always what to do on a particular week. So let's look at week 1 of September. That tells me it was weekly. And these are from England, so adjust accordingly with your times of your weather. And he says, Until now, you've probably been lifting potatoes only as needed for the kitchen, but now is the time to dig them for storing. First, cut off the bad part and burn it. Efforts to control potato blight will have some effect, but it's unlikely to have been completely successful. So don't put any parts of the potato that has infection on the compost. So the big stem that grows, then get rid of that. If possible, choose dry weather for harvesting potatoes. Lift carefully, inserting the fork far enough away from the stem to avoid spearing any of the tubers, and also to allow the lifting of the whole root at once. Probe around in the hole to retrieve any tubers that have come adrift. Any left in the ground are not only a great nuisance the following year when they sprout, but may also spread disease in the soil. Allow the potatoes to dry on the surface for several hours, then rub off any soil. Collect them in hessian, not plastic, sacks or baskets, discarding any that are diseased or damaged, which if stored would infect the rest of the crop. He says, I'm fortunate enough to have a dark loft in which to store potatoes. I cover the floor with a layer of dry straw, 15 to 20 centimetres deep. Heap the potatoes on it and then cover them with a further layer of straw, 30 to 60 centimetres. The straw satisfies the 3 criteria of being dark, dry and draft-proof. The one other essential is freedom from frost, and in a very severe winter, a protection in the form of more straw, sacks, or some other covering may be necessary. Potatoes may also be stored in straw-lined boxes, cellars, or cupboards using the same basic principles. These principles also apply to storing potatoes outdoors in a clamp. If you don't know a clamp, there's a picture here. That is how you do a clamp. There. Lost my placey now. Place a thick layer of straw on the ground. Make a heap of the potatoes and cover them thickly with straw. Then encase the heap in 15 centimetres layer of soil, leaving a chimney packed with straw at the apex for ventilation. Make the soil smooth so the rain runs down it, and surround the clamp with a drainage trench to prevent it from becoming waterlogged. The soil from the trench can be used to cover the clamp. When storing potatoes, keep the varieties separate so you can easily use them in the proper order. Early and second early potatoes do not keep as well as main crop varieties. The first week of September is quite early to begin digging main crop potatoes for storing, but when you lift the earlies and second earlies, look for signs of insect attack. In some years, particularly during droughts, the tubers are attacked by cutworms and wireworms. If these are present in large numbers, lift all the potatoes as soon as possible. The infestation will only get worse, and the bigger the pests grow, the more they will eat. Sometimes they will gnaw their way right into the heart of a tuber, leaving only the outer husk. Controversy thrives amongst gardeners as to whether it's advisable to keep one's own potatoes for seed next year. The conventional advice is to buy fresh seed potatoes every year in spite of the expense, as being the only safeguard against disease. Some gardeners, however, maintain they get a better crop in the second year from their own seed. No doubt the argument will continue. I myself sometimes keep seed, especially from early varieties of potatoes, for planting in the second year. I think that as a rule, no harm is done. Continue harvesting the abundant seasonal crops of tomatoes, cucumbers, marrows, beans and sweet corn. Take only what root vegetables you need for immediate use and leave the main harvest for storage until later. The main onion crop will probably be ripe for harvest now. Bend the drying foliage over parallel to the ground and allow to ripen for a further week or so before lifting. Lift in dry weather. If that's not possible, store temporarily on a raised platform in a well-ventilated shed to dry off. As crops are harvested and garden plots become vacant, do not allow them to remain so. If the ground is not wanted for anything else, sow with a cash crop such as mustard or turnips for your catch crop. Sow broadcast, not in rows. Certain varieties of turnips may produce sizable roots before winter from sowing now, and all will provide a crop of greens in early spring. But turnips offer one other advantage. Sown thickly, they seem to suppress couch grass, and that is a big problem here, is couch grass. In the fruit garden, as strawberry beds finish cropping, burn them over by setting the straw alight. Take heed to your fire regulations and restrictions. Have a spade handy in case the flames get out of hand. In built-up areas close to houses where bonfires are unwelcome, it's better to just clip the strawberry leaves off, then rake up the straw. This can be composted, provided the strawberries are healthy. Keep up with your fruit picking and check the fruit in store, removing any that are damaged or rotten. It's important to keep on top of the training of tree growing against walls. As crops of plums, peaches, nectarines and cherries are cleared, the old shoots should be removed and the new ones tied in to give the new wood a chance to ripen before winter. With cooler nights and heavier dews, it's wise to be on the lookout for slugs on autumn fruiting strawberries. Put grease bands round the fruit trees to prevent winter moths crawling up trunks and laying eggs. Now is a good time to look at your requirements for autumn planting. Last month it was a turn of strawberries, gooseberries, currants and raspberries. It's now the moment to consider apples, pears, plums, cherries, peaches, nectarines and blackberries. And if you have a greenhouse, in the greenhouse you should still be harvesting good crops of tomatoes and cucumbers, as well as aubergines, peppers, okra and melons. I'm still harvesting all those apart from okra. I didn't really grow okra this year. Continue to gather these crops, and as space becomes available, make sowings of dwarf beans, cauliflowers, carrots and lettuce. And then a quick glance what you should be doing. Vegetables, sow endive, winter varieties, kale, lettuce, onions, salad onion, radish, the winter varieties, spinach, winter varieties, spinach beet, turnip. Herbs, you can sow borage or borage and parsley. You should be harvesting dwarf beans, runner beans, beet, leaf beet, cabbage, calabrese, carrot, cauliflower, celery self-blanching, cucumber, endive, lettuce, marrow, including courgette, onion, salad onion, pea, potato, radish, spinach, sweet corn, tomato and turnips. Herbs, you should be harvesting those harvested for seeds and parsley, and transplant your spring cabbage. Fruit, you should be harvesting apples, blackberries, loganberries, blackcurrants, autumn fruiting, nectarines, peaches, pears, plums, raspberries, autumn fruiting, strawberries, certain types. Ground preparation for apples, blackberries, cherries, currants, gages, gooseberries, loganberries, pears, plums, raspberries and strawberries. You should be planting strawberries. Prune and tie in apricots, blackcurrants, cherries, gooseberries, nectarines, peaches, plums, raspberries. And in the greenhouse, you should be sowing dwarf beans, get greenhouse, no greenhouse here, dwarf beans, carrot, cauliflower, cucumber, lettuce, melon and radish, and harvest aubergine, capsicum, cucumber, melon, okra and tomato. That's not a good roundup. I don't know what it is. Let me just have a drink now. And while I'm having a quick drink, let's just play the interlude of today's theme. I'm still drinking. Still drinking. We have Della Smalley in the house. Well, hello everyone. Have a great day. Stay safe and take care. So a big hello to you, Della. So let me know what's going on in your garden. And what I also want to know, not just what you're growing or if you're going to try anything new this year, I want to know what your worst bugs are. What are your worst bugs? I've done lots of videos on this channel. They've got their own playlist. If you've got a problem with bugs, I have a playlist. I think it's just called Friend or Foe. It might be called Garden Bugs, Friend or Foe. But a whole playlist. Let me see what I've got on that. Let me see. I can tell you what ones I've done so far. And if anyone says they've got a problem with the bug I haven't done yet, I'm very good at knowing ways to not just get rid of bugs, but how to stop them in the first place. I think that's why I do so well with bugs. The only time I really get bad bugs is when I try to encourage them so I can film them for you. The things I do. So what have I done? Yeah, so if you've got a problem with something, let me know. And I've normally got a remedy and no spraying. What ones have we done? I've done mud daubers. Some of you might not know all these, depends where you're from. Dirt dauber, mud wasp, potter wasp, which is the paper wasp. Oh, and you also call things different as well. I try and put all the names something's known by. I do not know all of them. Hummingbird or hawk moth, and that's the hornworm that goes into. Geometry caterpillar, which many of you know as inchworm, you know the song Inchworm. It's also called a looper or a measureworm or a span worm. I was lucky enough to find one of those. Cicadas, I show you how they make their noise and so on and so forth. Cucumber beetle, I've done one on. And just because it's called cucumber beetle doesn't mean it's only on cucumbers. You often see them on tomatoes, broccoli, any brassica. They're the little tiny black things and they look like they've got tiny little white dots on. So again, if you can't identify what your bug is, ask for my email if you don't have it and send me a picture. That helps. Millipedes, bees, thing about butterflies, hornets, slugs, ants, oriental hornets. That's a bug we get here a lot. And as you know, I ended up in hospital with a sting from an oriental hornet. And I wasn't allergic to stings, but I was with that. Wasp, bagworms. Many of you didn't know when I put that up what bagworm was. And when I showed you, you thought it was very a curious thing. Now, this is a bug that has many different names. We call it wood lice, but Americans often call them roly-polies or pill bugs. They're also known as potato bugs or saw bugs. White fly, that's something, normally roses have the most problem with white fly. What else? Hornworms. And when I first was learning about insects, I thought you see that big fat like caterpillar and the hornworms have a little horn black on the end of its body, its tail. That's a hornworm. And I thought that was it. I thought it was a big fat caterpillar. It's not. That's just its shell. And recently I put a video up where you see the little insect come out of that great big thing. That's its disguise to stop big things eating it. And they often have patterns on them that make it look like they've got big eyes as well. That's just their camouflage. So that's a good one, the hornworm. And I've actually shown you all different types because there's many different species there. Slow worms. And slow worms, some people think they're snakes. They're not snakes. So yes, I've done about slow worms. People think they've got baby snakes in their garden. They're slow worms. Millipedes. Oh, did I say millipedes before? I've done 2 on millipedes. There's the Scantius, which is like a red bug. And a few years ago, I made the film because I hadn't got around to filming it. It's very common in Cyprus. And there was big thing on American news, these strange creatures, and they're going to devastate the farmlands and everyone's crops and all that. And that's what it was. It was that bug. They don't. We have them here all the time. So I thought, right, I'm going to make a film on that. So I posted that at that point. Locusts, grubs, different types of grubs you find in your garden, the great big thick white grubs, stink bugs, identifying those, mealy bugs, mosquitoes, cabbage worm, bagworm. I've done the second one on bagworm, squash vine borer and squash bug. I think a lot of people have problems with those. Yellow jackets, and again it's identifying them, and also in that I give you a cure for if you do get stung by those. We don't get those here. Ants, I've done different ones on ants. If I get more footage of something, then I'll do another video on it, like cicadas, ladybirds. You'll call them ladybugs. They're called ladybirds. Yeah, I think that's all I've done so far. So if there's anything there you want, if ever you want the video and you're like, I can't find it, then just ask. And as I say, I haven't done one on it. I've got many more I want to do yet, but they take time. Steve says, our apple trees are having a problem. What is your problem with your apple trees? Are they not growing apples? I am going to get rid of all my apple trees. The amount of water they need is ridiculous, and I just get tiny apples. It's far too hot. You can't really grow apples. They do grow some apples here, but they're high up in the mountain where they get the cooler winter. So it's a waste of space. I went out by Hugels the other day, and I do have a little chart where I write down what I've got in my Hugel bed. Let me show you that because it's just here. I keep this, and what I've got, it's not very neat at the moment. That is half my Hugelculture beds. Sometimes I put post-it note on, but as you can see, I'm using China graph at the moment, because if I'm down there writing what I've got in there, I just write it on a China graph, which is you just rub it out with your fingers or a bit of tissue. So that's half my Hugels. It's the other half of my Hugels. So I went down there, and then you can keep this because it's in plastic. You can either put post-it notes on them each year, stick them inside so then they won't fall off. You get the very thin post-it notes, or as I say, China graph if I'm down there writing it. So it's all neat, not neat. And then I went down there, and I'm going to actually stop buying a few things that are down there at the moment. So I'm going to not grow everything. So I went down writing what's there, and I'm only going to grow now because it's getting more and more difficult for me. I'm going to grow things that I can freeze or I use all the time. It's more that things that I really am using all the time, whether it's to make sauces. So I'm still going to grow my herbs, sauces. So I'm going to have more tomatoes, more peppers, more onions, and just get rid of some of the fancy schmancy stuff that, although it's food, it's not what I call bulk food or makes up a meal as such. So I'm actually going to be having a big old change, and we're actually changing some of the areas where we're growing as well. So we're there. Steve says with the apple, bugs in the apples. You could have a bug that's in the tree trunk, because a lot of the bugs that you get in apples are actually boring bugs that come up inside the trunk and then bore in the branches and then go into the apples. If you've got any pictures, I might be able to help further with that. And Steve says, one tree, they fall off before ripe. Fruit, when it falls off before ripe, can mostly be, but not always, too much watering, too less watering, or when you, let's say you get loads of rain one day and then dry the next day. So when you have big changes, that is normally when fruit falls off. Of course, wind, but normally when fruit falls off, it's because it's had too much water and then too less, too much of a big change. So if you've had a lot of rain and dry days, or you've had very dry days and then suddenly you've got really lots of rain, that is usually when fruit falls off. Other than that, it's not sturdy. The roots haven't got really good hold on the ground. So that could be slight moving. If you've had a lot of wind or heavy rain, then it makes it unstable. So the roots aren't secure. That can be a problem, particularly if they're young or old trees. What else can it be? The condition of the soil. So if you haven't been mulching them, you've just left them as they've always been. They can be a good tree that's always been good, but now it's happening. So it doesn't have to be a new tree. It can be that it needs mulching, or the soil's changed, so it's all dried out underneath. Mulching, I recommend mulching. So I'm not a gardener that tests my soil and checks for if there's zinc or if there's enough of this or enough of that. I don't do that. I want gardening to remain fun. So I don't have the time to do all that stuff, but that can be something. So there's the soil content can be that. They're old trees. Steve says, I'm putting 4-20-20 in the winter. Yeah, I don't know your soil, so I can't help you with that, but you seem to have a good eye on that. So, but the quickest solution is often that you've had lots of rain, or like wet and dry. Let's say you're someone like me, I have to water fruit trees every day. Let's say I just miss one day, but because that's how the rota needs to be here, watering my fruit trees every day, if I miss one day, then I can have problems. And one of the most annoying things, Sammy asked me, she said, I think that really gets you growing in Cyprus, it's that the time we have blossom, we have a Coptic just after all the lovely blossoms out. You often see my video with lots of beautiful blossom. The Coptic winds come, and if the blossom's lost, that's the end of our fruit. So yes, there's that. Steve says third year will give them a good trimming. Yeah, it can be that as well, that all the goodness is going too high or too wide. I've got to do it again this year. I'm on tree management this year. Soon as it's cooler, I want to get out. I'm cutting. I did some trees last year, and I always do the olive trees, but the actual fruit trees, cut the middles out like you do with olive pruning. If you don't know that, then ask me for a video. You do much the same really is best with fruit trees. If you don't grow them like espadrilles or on a wall and they're sort of thin, if you like, then you should always cut the middles out and don't let too much bow out. Keep them short, keep them roundish, but don't let any hanging bit go on or anything much in the middle. So that is my tip. We have Two Doves, Bees and Gardens in the house. I was talking about figs about 2 minutes ago. Every time I talk about figs, Two Doves, Bees and Gardens come on. So hello to John and Sarah. Oh, that's quite funny. You've got your fig radar on again. Yes. So let's see what else we can find. Let's look at second week in September, seeing as I got that one out as well. So I normally give you in advance. So this is in England, so adjust your times. Most of you know roughly how to change your times to certain countries. You might find lots of videos on. And this is week 2 of September. And he says, we are now approaching the season of frost. What's a frost? What's frost? I don't know. Frost. Although these may be delayed in the south for another few weeks, in the north they may occur at any time. Even if frosts are delayed, then gales with heavy rainstorms may batter your crops. The lifespan of more tender varieties such as tomatoes, runner beans, sweet corn and marrows is clearly nearing its end. Last week, just now, we discussed the pros and cons of saving one's own potatoes for seed. There could be no controversy about doing so with certain other vegetables. Marrows, pumpkins, squashes, cucumbers, runner beans and dwarf beans, for instance. Select individual plants and retain them for seeds. With beans, leave all the pods on the plant to ripen. Do not pick any for cooking. With marrows and other cucurbits, cease cutting for the kitchen from the selected plants and allow each plant to concentrate on ripening just one large fruit. This is what we're talking about, the trees and that. You don't want all the energy to go high or wide or up the new growth. When the marrow is ripe, the skins will be almost as hard as horn. The lighter parts will be tinged golden yellow and the stem will be hardened so that it can be snapped off the parent stem. Then remove and store the fruit in a dry, airy, frost-free place. Marrows for use in the autumn and early winter should be ripened and similarly stored. They should keep until Christmas or perhaps a little later. Pumpkins and custard marrows may be treated in exactly the same way. I do like the look of custard marrows. I can't get them here. Custard marrows, which have interesting shapes, can make an attractive addition to an ornamental fruit bowl. They will last for several months, and when you're tired of looking at them, you can eat them. That's like pomegranates here. Pomegranates are a display thing. We eat them, of course, as well, but they're display and they're actually put out to decorate your house indoors at Easter. It's an Easter decoration. If you don't have a pomegranate in your house at Easter, people think you're strange. It's like not having a Christmas tree if you're religious for Christmas. Cucumbers may be similarly ripened, but they tend to be rather bitter when fully ripe. Do not save the seed of the first hybrid varieties of any vegetable. In a sunny September, outdoor tomatoes may still be in full production, but remember, time is short. Do not encourage the plants to produce any more fruit, but help them to concentrate on filling out and ripening the fruit that are already bearing. Snip off any leaves that are shading the fruit and continue to pinch out any new shoots. He also says he picks out the later tomatoes when they are still yellow or orange and allow them to ripen on a windowsill or in a drawer. If wrapped in tissue paper and stored in a drawer, the ripening process is slowed down and the season belonged a bit. If bad weather threatens, remove the stake that is supporting the tomato and lay the plant on its side on the ground. Well, that's how I grow my wild tomatoes. What are wild tomatoes? They're just tomatoes that have gone down the drain in the sink, and I use the drain pipes are where I plant, and the seeds have laid there. They've grown, but I don't stake them because they're in an area where you can't stake. So they just lay out. That's my wild tomatoes. And it says, then insert 1 or 2 forked sticks to support the stem a few centimetres above the surface soil. Remove all surplus leaves and cover the plant with a cloche. The fruit will continue to ripen. If the weather remains sunny and dry, continue watering all crops. Be particularly generous with celery, which should now be making strong growth. Continue earthing up celery, taking care to keep the soil out of the centre of the plant. Earth up when the soil is moist but not saturated. The earthing up operation should be finished by mid-September, when the plants will appear to be growing in ridges with only the foliage. Depends where you're from. I've so many people comment on things I say, and it's like, well, where are you from? We all know you Americans think you speak English, but you say things completely different. So, yeah, think of it, it's the other way around too. Aluminium. This does not apply to self-blanching celery, which should now be ready for lifting. Another crop that can do with plenty of water is leaf beet, also known as sea kale beet or spinach beet. It should be possible to take several crops of leaves during the late summer and autumn, picking the outer ones first, followed by more next spring, but keep the plants growing vigorously. He says, in my garden, I always grow a few roots of fennel. I just can't grow fennel. The plant is a perennial, and once you have it in your garden, you do not get rid of it easy. Oh, I so wish I could. It is used for flavouring fish and cheese dishes and in many pickles and chutney. I also enjoy the young leaves in a salad. A herb which usually finds a place in my garden is savoy, or savoury, some of you call it. The little leaves are picked off as needed throughout August and early September for flavouring almost any dish. They have a hot tang, not unlike pepper. Now is the time to gather the entire plant and dry it for winter use. Chives is another perennial which you will always have in the garden once it has become well established. At this season, I dig up a few clusters and put them in pots for winter use. I don't grow them in the ground. I grow them in my vertical growing wall or in small pots. They will grow quite happy in a cool greenhouse or indoors on a windowsill. I don't have any windowsills I can grow on. I don't have windowsills. They need to be kept well watered, and the leaves have to be picked regularly, otherwise they will wilt when fully grown and die. With a pot of chives and a succession of crops of mustard and cress grown in a shallow container in a warm room, you can have fresh salads throughout the winter. In the fruit garden, now is the time to cover the autumn cropping strawberry plants with cloches to give added protection against birds, rain and possible frost in northern districts. Make sure the ends are closed. Maiden strawberry plants can be potted up in a 13.5 centimetre pot and placed outside, plugged up to the rims in peat or gravel. Water carefully until well established. These will be brought inside in midwinter for forcing. Planting arrangements for windbreaks around your fruit garden should be made now. Conifers such as Leyland cypress are good for this. I say that because people say my country's cypress, like the tree. No, it's spelled P-R-U-S is the country. The trees should be container grown to avoid a check when planted out. A visit to a good garden centre will provide some indication of the plants available. Gooseberries that are covered with the felt-like infection caused by American gooseberry mildew can still have the tips of diseased shoots cut back to healthy growth. When the increasing humidity of the season, extra care would be needed to ensure that apples and pears are dry before going into store. In the greenhouse, the days in September will be shortening, the sun will be getting less intense, not here. So it's important to keep the glass of your greenhouse thoroughly clean so the maximum amount of light can pass through. Continue to provide ventilation, but reduce watering and damping down unless the autumn is extremely hot and dry. Continue harvesting greenhouse crops when they're at their peak and continue to sow seeds for later crop. So we're just finished with what he says for week 2 of September. Vegetables, so endive, winter varieties, kale, lettuce, onion, salad onion, radish, winter varieties, spinach, winter varieties, spinach, beet, turnip, herbs, parsley. Transplant your spring cabbage and harvest your dwarf beans, runner beans, beet, leaf beet, cabbage, Chinese cabbage, carrot, cauliflower, celery self-blanching, cucumber, lettuce, marrow including courgette, onion, peas, potato, radish, spinach, tomato. Herbs, those harvested for their seeds, and parsley. Fruit, you should be doing ground preparation for planting tree, bush and cane fruits, as well as strawberries for autumn planting. Plant and transplant well-rooted blackberry layers, strawberries, windbreaks of evergreens. Prune your gooseberries. Harvest apples, blackberries, blackcurrants, autumn fruiting, cherries, loganberries, peaches, pears, plums, raspberries and strawberries. And finally, in your greenhouse, sow dwarf bean, carrot, cauliflower, cucumber, lettuce, melon, radish. Harvest aubergine or eggplant, capsicum, cucumber, melon, okra and tomato. Need a drink after that. So that's my little roundup. Hope there was something there to help you or for you to look into. As I say, do let me know in the comments below what you're going to plant, and I particularly want to know what you're trying new. So I think I'm going to finish there for today. That was a lot of reading, and that way we will all know what is fact. What is fact? So let me finish there. Thank you so much for watching. As always, brain's dead now. Brain tired. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. We haven't discussed. I did lots of editing today. So you've got some things coming up. And Wednesday live, I will be talking about many things related to recycling, salvaging, reuse, repurpose, thrifting, many words. And I'm also going to tell you the correct meaning of them all, because some people use the wrong word for the wrong thing. So I'm going to define the words and talk about that some more. So thank you so much for watching. Really is appreciated. If you're watching this back later, drop who you are in the comments so I can do my personal thank you to you as a comment. Till next time, as always, bye Steve. Meraki.